You're stuck at home in quarantine. 5 o'clock. Why not have a drink with me?
Hello. Good Monday afternoon. Hope everybody's week is getting started. Another pretty nice day up here in Boston. The sun out again. Not, a little cloudier than yesterday. Not quite as warm as yesterday, but still, solidly in the 60s. I ate lunch outside. It was very pleasant. Dogs have been outside all day. Very content. So I'll take it. Looks like we have Keith and Tom Kelly in the chat. Good to see both of you. Hope you're doing well. One thing about the weather that I saw this morning, my friend Al Roker was talking about how there's going to be some sort of Arctic break happening, and all this cold air they fear is going to come down into the Northeast, New Jersey and New York included, and we might get just a much colder weekend coming up. So don't know what's going on with that. I don't think it's supposed to be too crazy and too cold, but it is we might get a frost on Friday night or Saturday night, which is problematic for anybody who has planted stuff during the nice weather of the last week. So we'll see about that. Also excited, this week is Teacher Appreciation Week. So shout out to all the teachers. My school very kindly sent me a $25 DoorDash gift card credit, which seems like a good pandemic stay-at-home related gift, and that was very kind of them. So excited to get some delivery lunch later in the week. And I'm excited, we have two main projects that I'm going to be working on today. I'm going to do a normal cocktail of the day and make that cocktail, and then as I'm drinking that cocktail, I'm going to start a batch of dry vermouth, which I'm really excited about. It's actually a recipe that I haven't done before. I've made the sweet vermouth recipe a few times from the America's Test Kitchen book, How to Cocktail, which is pretty good. It's not my go-to for just your standard cocktail recipes. I have, I think, other books for that, but I do appreciate how they have some what seem to be pretty good recipes for sweet vermouth. Like I said, I've made dry vermouth I'm going to make tonight. They have a coffee liqueur that I'm interested in, and then some other interesting things, an ancho chili liqueur, which might be good, an orange liqueur. I don't know. So maybe I'll start getting into all of these liqueurs. We'll see. But Dad, Tom, I'm actually glad that you are here today because this show was inspired by you. So my dad recently remarked to me that he noticed that I haven't made any cocktails involving vodka. And so no cocktails involving vodka. And so I was telling my dad, because I know he's a vodka drinker. And so I was telling him, well, there aren't really a lot of craft, well-respected cocktails that feature vodka for a variety of reasons. One of which is vodka is standard. It doesn't actually bring any flavor or aroma or distinctive character to the drink. But we're going to go a little bit deeper in tonight, and today we're going to be making the Moscow Mule, which is pretty much the cocktail that is responsible for the downfall of cocktail culture in the 20th century, which took us over half a century to really come back from. The Moscow Mule and vodka killed cocktails in America for decades. Let me tell you why. So it really all starts with this one drink, the Moscow Mule. So people were not drinking vodka in the 1800s, really. If you go into the big city, people have heard of it, they know it's a thing, but they're not mixing drinks with it, they're not drinking it straight. You probably have to go into like an Eastern European immigrant neighborhood in a large city in order to really find people drinking vodka in the 1800s into really even the early 1900s. And that goes right into Prohibition. And then coming out of Prohibition, people still aren't really drinking vodka. They're picking up their old habits from pre-Prohibition, drinking beer, drinking whiskey, drinking gin. And what happens is that in the early 1940s, there's two men. One of them goes by the name John Martin. And John Martin basically is president of this company that just bought Smirnoff, the vodka company. You've all heard of it. And so he has this company. It's a small company at this point. They're not producing a lot. It's out of Bethel, Connecticut. And he realizes, like, nobody's buying this. Nobody likes vodka. Nobody's drinking vodka. I really need to, like, move this product. I need to sell this vodka if me and my company are going to be successful. He has this buddy named Jack Morgan, who is a British guy that came over to the U.S. and started a pub called the Cock and Bull in Los Angeles. And being a Brit, what he's trying to bring over is this like tradition in London that he used to always make this ginger beer. And so he's making this ginger beer at this pub, the Cock and Bull in Los Angeles, and nobody's drinking it. He's making it. He can't convince people that come in. Try my ginger beer. Try my ginger beer. Try my ginger beer. Nobody will drink this guy's ginger beer. And so he and John Martin get together and they realize, well, wait a second. This seems like a problem we can help each other out with. You've got vodka that nobody's buying. I've got this ginger beer that nobody's buying. What if we can create a drink that uses both of these ingredients and it's delicious and people start buying it and drinking it, and then, we'll be all set. And that's what they did. They really, it's unclear whether this meeting of the minds happened at the Cock and Bull pub in Los Angeles or while they were both in New York City. There's some historical accounts that for each of those possibilities. But it does seem that it is these two men who literally have this excess of Smirnoff vodka and his homemade ginger beer that are making this cocktail. And not only are they now making this thing which they call the Moscow Mule, and they are originally in that Cock and Bull pub serving it in the iconic copper mugs. But what happens next is really the story of vodka and takes over everything that happened for the rest of the 1900s, which is marketing and advertising. So they created this cocktail, but the Smirnoff guys were also like, all right, so we've got this great thing. Let's start to really sell it so people know about it across the country. And so they did two things. First of all, they had salesmen go all across the country to all of the different bars, and they were teaching the bartenders how to make the Moscow Mule, and they were putting up signs on walls, on mirrors, advertising the Moscow Mule. They're making it this go-to event, right? So this is really the birth of the more intense liquor and alcohol advertising in the U.S. that seems, so part of our culture right now. And so the Moscow Mule really blows up. And the other thing that happens is that since it's starting in this pub in Los Angeles, right on the Sunset Strip, it becomes really popular with Hollywood and really popular with all the celebrities of the time. And there's rumor that Joan Crawford had this big party with all the celebrities, and she said, we're only going to be having vodka and champagne at this party. The celebrities are starting to drink, these Moscow Mules all over the place, and that sort of influences the culture also in order to expand vodka and the Moscow Mule specifically across the country. Smirnoff then follows up the Moscow Mule with a second advertising campaign, which is the tagline, "Smirnoff leaves you breathless." And this is really getting at, this is the genius of it. This is getting at both the idea that vodka doesn't really have any distinctive taste or smell, but the idea that on your breath, you're not going to smell like you were just drinking all this booze. And so this was attractive to people. So they're really taking the part of vodka which, makes it an unappealing spirit for your cocktail needs and making it into an asset through their advertising prowess. So more and more people are buying vodka, using vodka, discovering vodka. They like that they can mix it and put it in anything and it's not going to change the flavor. Teenagers are mixing it with their Hawaiian punch because whatever, all it does is booze it up without ruining the flavor. And by 1967, vodka overtakes gin in consumption in the United States. And then about a decade later, I think by 1976, vodka overtakes whiskey, and vodka becomes, in 1976, the top selling spirit, or the top consumed spirit in the United States. And what are people doing with it? Well, some of them are drinking it straight. They're drinking all these Moscow Mules. The Bloody Mary was a thing for a while at this point now. But also they're saying, all right, so I can just kind of substitute vodka for whatever else it is that I want to make. So the vodka-tini became a thing, which was death knell number 4 for cocktail culture. Suddenly the gin martini, the sort of pinnacle of perfection in terms of cocktails, is now being turned into a vodka travesty and lacking all of those delicious gin flavors. And they invented the screwdriver, which there's another gin drink called the Orange Blossom, which is this beautiful drink, and then suddenly they've got vodka and orange juice and they're calling it a screwdriver. And so that's that. And vodka is super popular. Who came next? Well, after Smirnoff, some other companies were coming along in the vodka industry. And in the 1970s, you have Stolichnaya from the Soviet Union. This is what I know my dad liked to drink, Stoli. Stoli martinis, or Stoli on the rocks. And so in the 1970s, they realized, we can market this to rich folks who can, want something more refined because it's imported and comes from outside of the U.S. So that this imported top shelf liquor, and this is where you start to get the idea of let's sell high-end spirits where we're not going to do really all the volume business. We're not going to sell a ton of it, but what we do sell is going to have this huge margin. And Stoli really brought that onto the market, which is clearly a huge part now of, when you walk into a liquor store, all those top shelf and high end and, trendy liquors that you can find and spirits that you can find can be traced back to this moment when Stoli starts marketing it in the 1970s as this luxury imported item for you to drink. In the early 80s, though, the Soviet, obviously we're in the middle of the Cold War with the Soviet Union. It's, interesting that they can even get a foothold. But I think it was 1983 when the Soviets shot down a civilian airplane. I think it was a Korean Airlines plane. Suddenly people were like, whoa, oh yeah, I remember now. I hate the Soviet Union. We're in the middle of the Cold War. We don't want to drink Stolichnaya anymore. Who can we go to? And there's a company that really exploited this moment, which is Absolut. Absolut, being from Sweden, realized that peaceful Sweden, we're gonna market now ours as this nice, clear, refined spirit that is gonna take all of this business from people that no longer want to buy the Soviet vodka. And what did Absolut do? What do you think of when you think of Absolut? Advertising. I have this vivid memory of visiting my sister Erin during her semester at West Virginia University. And it must have been Parents' Weekend or something, and I go down and I just have this memory of sitting in her dorm room, and along on the wall are dozens of these cutout Absolut vodka magazine advertisements. You know what I'm talking about. You've all seen them. Dozens of them all around, right? Absolut was all about, we're going to make this image of ourselves as this clean, artistic, refined beverage. We're not even talking about vodka or drinking anymore. We're just talking about this like nice, clean, thing that I want because of the advertisement. Andy Warhol did some early ads for Absolut. They really just like took the advertising to the next level with that advertising campaign, which continues to this day. So you have Smirnoff doing it, you have Stoli doing it, and you have Absolut doing it. And I think that is just really the story of vodka from the early 1940s and the Moscow Mule, through not having a good product necessarily that people like to drink because it tastes good, but rather having a product that doesn't taste good or doesn't have any taste. It's the legal definition of vodka is that it does not have a distinctive taste or smell. So why would you put that in your drink? Well, because I'm being advertised to. And through capitalism and advertising, it's all sparkle, no substance. And it all traces back to this moment of the Moscow Mule, which we are going to make right now. So the Moscow Mule, like I said, merging of vodka and ginger beer. We're going to add some lime, and that's really it. So let me just run over to my refrigerator here, and I'm going to grab the chilled ingredients that I need. So I have 2 of these beautiful copper mugs that have been in my freezer. I've got some ice. And then I've got my ginger beer also chilling here in the fridge. And I need to juice some limes. I'm going to need half an ounce of lime juice for each of these. And now what I'm first going to do, also my garnish is going to be just one of these lime halves. So I'm just going to take this first one, and I'm not going to put it through my hand juicer because I don't want to pulverize it. I want to save it for the garnish. So I've just got these 2 nice lime shells that I'm going to put to the side. And then these are pretty small limes, so I'm going to do probably 4 or 5 of them to make sure that I have enough. There we go. The other thing I'll say, in the 1980s, the other vodka drink that became really big, I would say is really the pinnacle of a vodka drink that came across with surprising popularity, is the drink that my mom drinks, the Cosmopolitan, which is in itself, a pretty good drink. You got your lime juice, you've got your cranberry juice, you've got your vodka, and Cointreau. And so that's a pretty good drink. So shout out to my mom, who I know enjoys those. I think she's in the chat. Tom Kelly says, to add to your history, Alex Lowe used to sneak vodka into my house when he was in high school. That is a factual statement also. And I think, again, is a perfect characterization of vodka, which is the thing that you can get drunk off of, but you don't actually need to like drinking, and you can just mix it into anything and it'll get you drunk, but you won't necessarily enjoy the flavor of it. All right, so I'm going to take half an ounce of lime juice in each of these. Just going to build these right in the mugs. The copper keeps everything nice and cold. Then I'm using Tito's vodka. I get this at Costco. Again, you're not tasting the vodka. I'm not going to spend a ton on any high shelf vodka. Tito's, I think, is from Austin. Yeah, Austin, Texas. Crafted in an old-fashioned pot still by America's original micro distillery. Don't know what that means, but it seems like more good marketing from a vodka company. and 1.5 ounces of vodka. And then I'm going to add my ice. These mugs are like bigger than you think they are. I'm like, I'll fit 4. I could fit 5. Looks like I can fit 6 cubes in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. All right. And now I'm going to take my ginger beer. Got this nice Gosling's ginger beer, which we usually keep on hand for dark and stormies, but we'll use for the Moscow Mule today. And you want about 4 ounces of the ginger beer. And I give it just a nice little stir to mix it all up. But pouring the ginger beer on top will take care of most of that. You don't want to stir it too much and get rid of all of that carbonation. And I'm going to take my lime halves, put them in there, and we have the Moscow Mule. Cheers. It's a fine drink. Again, what you're really drinking is ginger beer. Ginger beer is delicious. I'll drink ginger beer all day long. Adding the vodka doesn't really change that. What's the big flavor that comes across? It's ginger beer. It's not vodka and ginger beer. You're not getting anything from the vodka, but it's fine. The lime does a little bit nice little touch there, right? If they didn't have the lime in this, I think they would have had trouble marketing it as a cocktail because you're just basically mixing a spirit and some soda. And I also think they would have had some trouble with the I don't think it would have tasted as good. I think the lime does bring it together in a really interesting way. So that's pretty good. Not a bad drink, but at what cost? At what cost? We have this drink, but as I just proved to you, this drink cost us 70 years of cocktail history and evolution. Was that worth it for the Moscow Mule? No. Think about where we could be if all of those years were as vibrant as the 1830s to 1920, the evolution and everything that was happening in cocktails. Everything instead was just halted, aside from tiki. Tiki is the exception. But everything else was basically just halted from the 1940s until the craft cocktail movement resumed in force in the early aughts of this century. But it's good. But it's tasty. All right. Now, looks like we have Olivia joined. Shout out to Olivia. And Ben. Hey, Ben. Ben, you just missed my total rant on vodka. So you're going to have to go back and watch that later because I feel like you would appreciate it as my kindred spirit in our cocktail endeavors. All right, so we do have some bonus content today. So I'm just going to put this ice away. And then we are going to get going on taking the first steps to making a batch of dry vermouth. And as I said earlier, I have not made dry vermouth before, although I have used a recipe for sweet vermouth from the same cookbook, and so I trust it. I think it'll be good. It's a pretty easy recipe, so no troubles there, and we're gonna get it started. What is vermouth? Vermouth is a fortified wine, which means an alcohol-enhanced wine that is livened up with herbs and roots and spices to create whatever character that you want to create. And so how we make it is we're basically going to infuse some vodka, using vodka because it's tasteless and doesn't actually bring anything to the drink, vodka. We're going to take some vodka and we are going to mix a bunch of different stuff with it. So let's get to it. So the first thing I need is 6 ounces of vodka in my mason jar. We're going to put everything right in there. Six ounces of vodka. What are we adding to that? We are going to add a 3-inch strip of orange zest. Do I have my peeler? I have my peeler right. Where's my peeler? Right here. All right. Just need 1 long strip of orange zest going inside. Very good. Next, 1 bay leaf. Here I have my bay leaves. I'm going to take 1 bay leaf, put that in. It's like we're making a witch's brew. Next, we have dried wormwood. So I've got my dried wormwood here. And I am going to measure out 1 teaspoon of dried wormwood. Beautiful. Next, we need dried chamomile flowers. So I'm going to take 1 teaspoon of my chamomile flowers. They're a little hard to measure out because they're like a bunch of little flowers, but it should be good. Next, sage. 1 teaspoon of dried sage. Let's see where this is. Here we have sage leaf. Sort of like a lightly minced up sage leaf. You know, you get like the big, I always think of them as the fuzzy leaves. All right. 1 teaspoon dried sage. Next, speaking of gin, we're going to use 6 juniper berries that are lightly crushed. So here, I don't know if you are familiar with juniper berries, a common flavoring agent in gin, but this is what they look like. We measure out 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. What does a juniper berry taste like? Man, tastes like gin. So I like such that that distinctive gin flavor is all this right here. So for these, I'm just gonna lightly give them a little crush so that their flavors come out. The back of my knife. And drop those in. Next, I have coriander seeds. I'm going to use half a teaspoon of coriander seeds. And half a teaspoon of dried thyme. Do we have time for that? Yes, we do. Another half teaspoon of this. Very nice. Next, I'm going to take a 1/4 teaspoon of black peppercorns. Excellent. And then a 1/4 teaspoon of cassia bark chips. Which look like this. They look like little wood chips. Cassia bark. This is another one that's kind of tricky to measure out because it doesn't like really fit in a teaspoon measure, but I think that looks about right. Then I'm going to take 2 whole cloves. One green cardamom pod. This one too, I like to just kind of press it just a little bit, just to crack it open a tiny bit. And then 1/2 of a star anise pod. So I like to find one that's, a lot of times they're like already kind of broken up. So I'm gonna take this one and I'm just gonna break off. So this is gonna give it like a sharp licorice flavor. And so you don't want to go too crazy with it, otherwise it'll overwhelm everything else. I'm just gonna use that. Beautiful. Great, so I am just going to put the lid on this jar. Where's the lid of this jar? Here it is. And give it a good shake. Get something that looks like that. And that's just going to infuse the vodka for, they say 12 to 24 hours. We will come back tomorrow evening and finish the process. So that's all we've got. So another shout out for Teacher Appreciation Week to any teachers that are with us today. Ben, I know you are a teacher. I appreciate you. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. The other important programming note that we have is typically tomorrow would be Quarantiki Tuesday. Quarantiki Tuesday is going to be postponed until Wednesday to become Quarantiki Wednesday, so that tomorrow we can celebrate Cinco de Mayo, making the iconic drink, the margarita. So looking forward to that. Hope everybody is doing well. Hope you didn't mind too much my ranting about vodka and how Moscow Mule created the demise and downfall of cocktail culture for over half a century. And there's no forgiving it. And I hope you're all doing well.
It's 5 o'clock. Why not have a drink with me?
Cheers, everybody. Have a great night.